Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought since the Battle Pass vehicles are in the game, we would have a final look at them and an overall review before we get access to them. The first vehicle we're going to have a look at is the MC485, and you can find it at the Battle Pass at level 38. This is a paid vehicle. The free one is actually the B7 this time. You can see it has its name on it, very similar to a lot of these Italian vehicles that always sport their name, which is pretty cool. And the vehicle itself looks pretty standard. You know, the only difference between it and what we've seen in the asset viewer is it doesn't seem to have its mines, and it doesn't either seem to have its depth charges. Only has access to the torpedoes, which is something we've seen previously. The vehicle has access to two torpedo launchers, I should say, with two torpedoes. These torpedoes are pretty rubbish, but once you get the torpedo mode, they will obviously improve. Still not great as general torpedoes. And then you have these two 40mm Bofors L60s, so not L70s, but still pretty nice. Now, the interesting thing about these guns is the fire arc, and I'll show you what I mean in the game. It also does have a search radar on it, but at the moment it isn't modeled, so hopefully that gets fixed. It does also have some camouflages, which is pretty cool. So these are all of the standard ones that you find for the Italians that are around the place. And also on top of this, one can be ground out, two can't. And then you have also the deforming camouflage, which is the one that you can unlock in the Battle Pass. So I'll show you the major issue I have with this vehicle. And it's just the simple fact that the guns are just not in a good place. So the torpedoes, obviously with the torpedoes, you know, they're generally going to be fine going after like other things once they fixed the way that they come out. But if you have a look at the firing angles on the guns, so this about here is basically where you can shoot both of these guns together, right? So this is the angle that you're able to shoot at, and even then you can see the back gun is not having it. So the firing arc that you actually have for these guns is absolutely tiny compared to a lot of other machines. Once again, the front gun is going up again. So you only have maybe 40-50 degrees either side to be able to hit targets at. So anything that's in front of you, what you're going to have to do, let's say like you're shooting this target here, you're going to have to turn this much in order to be able to hit the vehicles, which is just no good. Like, it's just awful. As someone who's played stuff like the T-51B in the past, which has a similar issue to this, it's just a pain. Now, it also has no secondary weapons or anything like that, so you're very reliant on these Bofors guns, and you can't shoot backwards and you can't shoot forwards, and that just kind of sucks. So overall, it's probably one of the weaker vehicles out of the S38, S100 family, just because of these here, and also the radar just not working right now. No mines, no depth charges either, even though the racks are there. I'm guessing this thing isn't fully finished, but yeah, it kind of sucks. The next vehicle you get access to is the B7A2 Homare 23. Now this is pretty much exactly the same as the standard B7A2, the only difference is the engine. So you can see here the Nakajima Homare 23, which is a variant of the 21. It has a takeoff power of 1979 horsepower. It seems quite nice, right? So 1979, if we compare that to the standard one, which is in the tech tree, which is exactly the same BR, you have a engine on the standard B7A2, which is the Nakajima Homare 12, and it gives 1831 takeoff horsepower. So you basically got 100 more horses on the vehicle, which should give it a pretty decent click, which will be nice. And that's pretty much it. Everything else is exactly the same. But the thing is, that doesn't mean that it's a negative. The B7A2 is a fantastic vehicle in not just air, but also in ground and naval. It can be used in pretty much any role. It does have the 60 kilo bombs, the 250s, and also the 800, so you can really give something a good donk. It also has the really good torpedo. The Japanese have fantastic torpedoes in the game, and the Type 91 Model 3 is also really nice. You can see the travel distance is good, maximum speed in water is good, and the main thing is the drop ranges. So the altitude at 260 is fine. fine, but look at the speed range. You can go 556 kilometers an hour and be able to actually still drop this one, which is really good for stuff like naval. So this thing has, the rank 3 capability. It can be used for stuff like mass destruction, like dailies and specials, and also it's very useful in all the different game modes because of the 800 kilo or the torpedo, depending on what you want to use. The 20 millimeters do okay damage. You know, I'm not going to oversell the Type 99 guns. They're not great, but, you know, they're good enough to be able to do decent damage to things in the air. And also you have the turret at the back, which will help you out as well. But as somebody who's played the B7A2 quite a lot, getting a version which has a slightly better engine actually is really nice, because now you can run 1 or 2 in the lineup, and overall it'll feel really nice. It's just, there's only one little issue with it, which is obviously the variety angle, but it depends on how you see that, right? Like, some people won't really mind that. The Battle Pass camo that you get for it is the unpainted camouflage, which I actually think is really nice. Basically just the silver and then the red, very similar to a lot of other Japanese ones. Then you get the standard green, since this is, the good old army colors. So overall, not too bad for the plane. It's nice to see. And overall, I think it should have probably been more of a standard tech tree / squadron vehicle, but still a good vehicle. It is also the free one in the Battle Pass, so if you're interested in getting into Ground Japan, or maybe if Japan gets a sub-tree in the future, this could be useful for that. Then you have the big prize of the Battle Pass, which is the SBZ-12-3 LGS. Now, this thing has exactly the same chassis as the Rakuten Autonaut, so if you are, or Automat, if you're used to that by now, then you'll be used to the chassis on this, which is a completely fine chassis. Just remember, this is in its stock configuration, so stuff like its engine power and things will be higher than this, but overall, it's got okay mobility as it moves around. It's got the 20mm MK21, and the actual rounds on this thing, if you have a look at it, it has the default HVAP Heavy, so it pens 57, which is generally quite okay, and you can get a DM43 set, so 57mm across the board. At 6.7, you'll run into a lot of heavy tanks and medium tanks that you won't really be able to do too much against, but stuff like bulldogs from the side and also other light vehicles, you'll be able to rat-a-tat with this cannon. The surprise to me is it has 5 crew in it, which, is quite nice, especially with the 2 at the back. Means that if you get crunched here, your 2 crew can replace these guys. It does mean that your load on the recoilless rifle is probably not going to be great. The main problem with this thing is the recoilless rifle is pretty slow, but at the same time, all of the other recoilless rifles we have in the game are also pretty slow. And remember, this is before you get the elevation mechanism and also the horizontal drive, so overall not too shabby. I wish it went backwards a little bit quicker. That is one of the issues that I have with the vehicle. Usually for light tanks you want ones which are able to get in and get out of situations pretty nippily. This one isn't one that can do that. Does get the smoke grenades though to reposition, which is good, and also the airstrike and improved optics to show that it gets scouting. The heat is pretty good. It's the standard for the recoilless. The Hesh is useless, never use it unless you like the pain train, and everything else about it seems pretty good. Low survivability, but also you can hide the vehicle and just have the recoilless rifle out, and also it has all the standard German kind of more modern camos like the 3-tone Kark, which is always nice, and also the tricolor desert, which is good. The actual vehicle you'll find at level 75, and also you'll find the camo at level 79 for it. And the camo is actually really nice. It's a Fleck Tarn camouflage, so it's one of those like kind of interesting like light green, dark green, brown setups, which you see a lot in general modern kind of German vehicles, and I like it. I think it's really good. It has a lot of nice detailing and all of that, and generally looks quite good. So for me, the vehicle itself looks completely fine. I just wanted to show you as well this little robot, just to kind of like show you what it looks like as a little thing. You can see it's not tiny. It's pretty chunky. So yeah, I thought it was a lot smaller than it is, but it's nearly, you know, at least half the size of this turret. But back to back to the SPZ. So yeah, this vehicle is looking fine. I've said many times it's kind of sad what we've seen happen to the German 6-7 lineup over the years. This will hopefully bolster it a little bit now that the RU has been moved. The first, or the recoilless, is on the primary number 1. So you can see there, that's the recoilless. And then the actual machine gun is the ranging machine gun that this has, which I believe is more designed for the Hesh, not the other one. So yeah, you gotta take that into account. Or it might actually be for the heat. And then the tertiary gun is the 20mm. So take that into account when using this thing. Also at the same time, you can use the 20 to go after light targets. And you can see here we are doing some damage to the Shilka there. And if you want, you can switch between views. So this is the view of the main cannon, this is the view of the other one, so it has those available, which is quite nice. And then the main view that you're going to get is the recoilless though, which makes the most sense. You can see how small this thing is, and since the aimer or the optic for the vehicle is above the vehicle, it means that you can actually hide it behind a hill and then shoot over it like this, which I think is the main thing that people are going to do. So if you get a hill which kind of hides your hull, you can scout and then just shoot enemies and they can't shoot you back. It's one of those things that worries me about a lot of these vehicles, but generally, you know, stuff like the Striker, for example, has been able to abuse this quite a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of other vehicles in the future that will be able to too. But overall, it looks pretty fun. Looking forward to getting it, you know, getting it sorted. And the only issue I would say is the rotation on the recoilless is pretty rough, but it's the same as all the other ones. And the overall speed is a bit of a problem as well. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Millie Draper, Juan the Panda, Nick R. Cupila, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie B. Young, Peter Grayling, Jerry Provolt, Bareen, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, Derek R., and Lafouche for supporting the channel.